I am keenly aware that I stand between you and lunch, so I will try to be as efficient as I possibly can. So I'm pleased to be here to present the Canadian perspective on the implementation of the Galway Accord on behalf of Assistant Deputy Minister of Science for Fisheries and Oceans, Trevor Sertfager. And also, hopefully, I will represent the science community, ocean science community in Canada as best as I can. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to start with an illustration of, do I change the slides from? Oh, all right, thank you. Just wanted to illustrate the Canadian context for Galway, that our corner of the pond is changing, both in terms of processes that are global significance, like deep water formation and connection to the Arctic, but also changing economic activity that influences how we use these ecosystems. So Galway comes at a very good time for us. And I just want to start by illustrating a bit what we bring to the table. What we bring to the table is a very diverse ocean science community in Canada that can be divided into three main groups: the academic sector, the federal government sector, and the private sector. So in the academic sector, we have 15 Canadian universities with ocean-related research programs and a large number of academic-led research networks. Some of them have been discussed in the US presentation, actually, that have contributions to make to the Galway goals. So, sorry, I probably went too far. The red button, right. So the other group are the federal departments. There's 5 federal departments involved in ocean-related research in the federal government, and the Fisheries and Oceans is the lead, but other people are involved. We do have also within the federal government networks that work across federal departments to develop products like better ocean forecasting. And also what I want to mention is that a big part of Fisheries and Oceans' role here is to sustain observations of our corner of the world, the Northwest Atlantic, of the ocean conditions and of ecosystems. We monitor these lines there every year so that we bring this to the table as a strong contribution of the federal government to this enterprise. And finally, you have the private sector, and they deserve really to sit at the table because they invest a large part of their income in R&D for future development of ocean technology. So, not going to make this trip across the ocean without having an opportunity to toot our horn a bit. So just want to say here that Canada's collective SNT in the ocean ranks 7th in the world and 11th in terms of impact. And this diagram illustrates the interactions between the different players using primary publication, joint primary publications as an indicator of our interactions. So we are very active in the science, in the science technology, ocean science technology. The other thing is that the federal government really pushed in its federal science and technology strategy that was just updated last year, really pushed partnerships, not only to work on Canadian problems, but also international partnership to tackle challenges that are beyond the capacity of any one nation. At this point, I would like to go into more how we are starting to implement the Galway, Canadian implementation of the Galway Agreement. So we did form the Galway Marine Working Group that was established by the Canadian science delegates that were present at Galway. And the one point I want to make is that this group is led by Fish and Oceans. It's chaired by the Assistant Deputy Minister of Science for Fish and Ocean, Trevor Sertfager. And it's really a place where we exchange on what are our plans for interacting, for contributing to Galway, making sure that we have 360 communication among the partners about what's going on. And there's been a large interest. It's grown from 15 members initially to now 60. And I think we have been very successful actually at engaging all the layers of the Canadian community that's interested in transatlantic research, including the provinces, private sector, universities, and the federal side. Just a little slide on the, the governance, the Canadian Marine Working Group, which is on the pink on the left side, how it interacts with the international. So we interact with the working group, the bilateral working group, and the stakeholder committees. So we both contribute to them and get some instructions from them in a way to shape our own activities. The working group has identified three main outcomes that we want to get out of our Galway. One is making the most out of our ecological capital, prosperity through sustainable use. The second one is having safe activities, human activities on the ocean. And the third one is education and forming the next generation of skilled professionals who will tackle tomorrow's problems. So these are the outcomes that we're shooting for. The group has considered, I'm never going to use the tablet again, by the way. We've also looked at the priority that came out of the initial discussion on the Galway statement, and the consensus of the group was to adapt them somewhat to the Canadian context. So we have oceans, health and stressor, observation and prediction, the seafloor, agriculture, and information management. For each of these priorities, we identified co-leads from Fisheries and Ocean or a federal department and from academic side. So we have co-leads for each of these working priorities who are working to interact with their partners in the US and Europe to develop our work plans. So as I said, I think we can take pride in Canada as the way we've managed to engage people and disseminate the information and make sure that we have some engagement from all sectors. So this is just a quick summary of some of the projects that have been funded through Horizon 2020, and Canadians are engaged in many of them. Some of them will be discussed later, but particularly on the Atlantic observations, the agriculture side, and also ocean literacy. Of course, we're part of the Ocean Research Alliance and Polar Research Cooperation. One thing, so in terms of some example of a concrete product, for example, is Doug Wallace has led the production of a white paper, so to speak, on our contribution to the integrated Atlantic Ocean Observing System. So this is the Canadian perspective, and on how we can build a system with the principles of multidisciplinarity, flexibility, built on what you already have, and making it sustainable, and linked to models in remote sensing. So this strategy is published, and we expect to have similar strategies being developed for each of our 5 priority areas. So this is the first one out of the gate. One thing I wanted to mention also is that, like many nations here, some of our contribution to Galway will come through our membership and participation in international science organizations that already exist. So, for example, Canada, like many of you here, we are members and participants in the International Council for the Exploration of the Sea, and we participate in many of the activities at ICES that map very well to the priorities for Galway. Just bring up an example here of the Regional Seas Working Group in ICES that are trying to develop the methodologies for integrated ecosystem assessment for different parts of the Atlantic. And Canada and US co-lead the one on the Northwest Atlantic. And we're making good progress in not only looking at how to build integrated ecosystem assessment, but also integrating social sciences into the mix. And I know that Dave Reed, the chair of the steering committee that tries to knit all this together, is very interested in seeing how they can better contribute also to the Galway objectives. So I just wanted to mention that. And I'm getting, oh, there was a little thing here. So I just want to remind people again that in Canada, we don't really have funding dedicated to the Galway enterprise as yet. So what we're doing right now is we're really aligning our existing programs as much as possible with the Horizon 2020 programs that are funded, taking our priorities from the international governance. So, but there may be hope on the funding front. There's a new fund in Canada that's been announced in December, the Canada First Research and Excellence Fund. I always try to. So that's been announced in December, and this fund is 200 million a year. It's pretty substantial. And it's dedicated to helping the Canadian universities to increase their level so they can compete on the international. So, of course, there's some proposals in there that will we'll see what gets funded, but that will contribute to also to Galway objectives. So finally, I just like to say that we're looking at, when we look forward, we're looking also at the application of what is being done at Galway towards policy development, the production of public goods, services, and standards. And we're also looking to increase our engagement of small and medium-sized enterprises and users of science in shaping Canada's response to this, this great initiative. So that's all I had to say. Thank you very much for your attention, and we can go and eat now.